Emily's fingers traced the smooth leather of Silver's reins as she rode through the golden fields, the evening sun casting long shadows. The wind carried whispers of summer, rustling the wheat as if sharing her secrets with the world. She leaned forward, pressing her cheek against Silver's mane, closing her eyes for a brief moment. This was freedom. This was where her heart felt safe. She had always believed in love the way poets wrote about it, pure, consuming, eternal. And Daniel made her believe it was real. From the first time he had spoken her name, she had felt something shift inside her, something she had never known before. He wasn't just handsome, he had a way of making words sound like promises, like the universe itself had conspired to bring them together. Emily, he had once said, his fingers brushing against hers, you and I, we're written in the stars. She had smiled then, her heart swelling with a warmth she couldn't contain. In a town where life was predictable and slow, he was the spark that made everything feel alive. The stolen glances across the marketplace, the lingering touches when no one was watching, every moment was a thread in the tapestry of their love. Silver had been there for all of it. She had whispered every secret to him, laughing as his ears twitched as if he understood. He loves me, Silver, she would say, running her hands over his snowy coat. I know he does. Daniel would meet her at the old oak tree by the river, where time seemed to slow just for them. He would pull her close, his breath warm against her skin, speaking of dreams that stretched far beyond their little town. One day, we'll leave, he had promised. Just you and me. The thought of a future with him was intoxicating. She had imagined their lives together, a small house near the hills, laughter echoing through the open fields, love that never faded. She had trusted him with the kind of devotion only the young and hopelessly in love could understand. But love, she would soon learn, was not always what it seemed. She felt the shift before she saw the signs. Love had a rhythm, a steady pulse, and somewhere along the way, theirs had lost its beat. Daniel was different now. He still smiled, still spoke in the same soft voice, but there was something hollow behind his words. He cancelled their meetings more often, always with an excuse that felt just a little too practiced. The warmth in his touch had faded, replaced by something colder, something distant. At first, she told herself she was imagining things. Love wasn't perfect all the time, was it? People got busy. Life got in the way. But then there were the details, the little cracks in the foundation that no amount of denial could patch. The scent of perfume that wasn't hers lingering on his jacket. A letter hastily shoved into his pocket when she approached, his fingers gripping it too tightly. The way his eyes darted away when she asked where he had been. Silver seemed to sense it, too. He grew restless when Daniel was near, his ears twitching, his body tensing. Emily tried to ignore it, but the feeling gnawed at her, a quiet voice in the back of her mind whispering what she wasn't ready to hear. One evening, she found the courage to ask. They stood beneath the oak tree, the same place where their love had felt like the center of the universe. Daniel, is something wrong? Her voice was steady, but inside, she was bracing for impact. His reaction came too quickly. A forced laugh, a hand through his hair, a reassurance that felt more like a dismissal. You're overthinking, Em. I've just been busy. She nodded, pretending to believe him. Pretending it didn't hurt. But as he held her that night, his arms around her felt less like comfort and more like a lie. The truth arrived uninvited, shattering the last pieces of hope she had been clinging to. Emily hadn't meant to see it. She had been riding Silver along the quiet back roads, the same paths she had traveled 1,000 times before, when she heard laughter, his laughter. It was different, lighter, effortless in a way it hadn't been with her in weeks. She slowed Silver, heart pounding as she followed the sound. And then she saw them. Daniel stood with Sophia, their hands entwined as if they had never been meant for anything else. His touch, his smile, the soft murmur of his voice, it was the same way he had once held her, spoken to her, loved her. Except now, it wasn't hers anymore. A sharp ache settled in her chest, a weight so heavy it stole the air from her lungs. She should have turned away, should have spared herself the final blow. But she couldn't. She watched as he leaned in, whispering something against Sophia's skin, his lips grazing the same spot where he had once kissed her. Silver shifted beneath her, restless, sensing the storm brewing inside her. For a moment, Emily felt nothing at all. Then the numbness cracked, and the pain rushed in, raw and unforgiving. She gripped the reins, fingers trembling. 1,000 memories flashed through her mind, the whispered promises, the laughter, the nights spent believing she was his only one. All of it had been a lie. Daniel hadn't just betrayed her. He had made her believe she was special, only to replace her like she was nothing. Her throat tightened, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not where he could see. She turned Silver around, digging her heels into his sides. The wind tore through her hair as they rode away, faster and faster, as if she could outrun the betrayal burning inside her. But no matter how far she went, she couldn't escape the truth. She had loved him. And he had never really loved her at all. The pain didn't fade overnight. It settled in slowly, weaving itself into the quiet moments, the empty spaces where Daniel used to be. Mornings felt colder, evenings stretched too long, and every familiar place carried a memory she wished she could forget. But grief had a way of changing shape. At first, it was sharp, unbearable, a wound too deep to touch. Then it became something else, something quieter, something that no longer controlled her. She stopped waiting for explanations that would never come. Stopped wondering if she hadn't been enough. She was enough. She no longer rode the paths where she had once met him. Instead, she let Silver take her somewhere new, to places untouched by the past. The open fields, the rolling hills, the endless sky above, it reminded her that the world was bigger than a single heartbreak. One day, she wrote a letter. Not to him, but to herself. A promise. She would not let this define her. She would not let the betrayal turn her bitter or afraid. Love wasn't the enemy, false love was. And one day, she would find something real. But for now, she had herself. And that was enough. She folded the letter, tucked it away, and never looked back. As she rode through the fields, Silver's hooves pounding against the earth, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Freedom.